Welcome to the CEN show, the voice of the world community and a platform where we learn from the world community. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Rasaki Maskani. I'm the host. We have Professor Amin Ra here. We got Brother E, and we got Brother Mashinda, and Brother Hembrick is joining us. So this evening, we have a return guest, and it's Professor J.I.E., or you call her Dr. Ife Jai, or Dr. J, as her students may call her. She's a professor at Trade Tech College, and she just told me that she's an adjunct professor at a junior college in Fresno. So I'm glad to hear that she's spreading her wings and flying around here, and that's good. I want to show you the first show we did with her right quick, and you can go and check it out. We did it back in January 18th, and it was a real good show. I encourage you to check it out. So this evening, our topic is street Sankofa. Very interesting term, Sankofa. And Dr. J will get into everything and let us know what she means by street Sankofa. And she's also, I forgot to mention, she's also a rap artist. So she's a very talented young lady here. And we learned a lot from her the first time, and we looking forward to learning this evening. So welcome, Professor J, or Dr. J. And you can go ahead and start your presentation.
All right. Thank you again. I just made a post on Facebook because I hope that we get so many more people to know that y'all exist. I love the content that y'all are promoting. And because information is starting to become more and more valuable and more targeted in this society right now, I am definitely honored and really inspired to be able to be on platforms like this where we can promote the things that are important to us. So thank you so much to this crew, this family. I really appreciate being a part of this circle. I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can share my screen here. Looks like I can. Looks like I can, and I'm assuming that you all can see my screen. You should see real, #real. Is that visual? Okay. So I want to begin by saying that hip hop is my passion. And if y'all have the time to go back and look at our other video, which I didn't realize it was the time frame, right? How far ago it was. It wasn't that long ago. But hip hop is something that's very important to me. And we'll get into why it is something that I think should be important to all of us. But I think most importantly, as we are in this year, 2023, a lot of people have been celebrating hip hop turning 50 years old. And a lot of folks have been doing some really wonderful things to acknowledge that marker, that 50-year marker. One of the things that I wanted to contribute to the culture is to say at 50, with 50 years, we should be able to stop for just a second and take inventory of where it is that we have gone, where it is that we have come from, so that we can be very intentional on the direction of hip hop culture. Now, one of my babas, the last time we were talking, I can tell that hip hop, it's a very contradictory space. It could be a space that has so many different characteristics in it that are at times in opposition of our agenda as Black nationalists. There could be times where hip hop culture can be contradictory to things in terms of creating strong familyhood. But in my opinion, that's what makes hip hop so great, that it can exist with all of these contradictions. And so again, as we look at this thing called hip hop, how can we understand it so that we can take on a new direction or a very intentional direction in the next 50 years? And so my movement, I call it Return to the Real, or what I refer to as hip hop embarking on a street Sankofa. And we'll get into what that looks like. Now, as many of y'all have known and know that we do this work not by ourselves. We do this work because we absolutely 1000% stand on the shoulders of somebody else. And one of the things that I want to make sure that I acknowledge is that it's important for us to write our own narratives, y'all. If we don't talk about our stories in our own words, then the narratives of those others will be the things that our society and our history will always chronicle. One of the things that I really admire and I'm inspired by is the work of Dr. Akinyele Umoja, who everyone knows here as a wonderful friend and family member, right? But Dr. Umoja, he took on that same kind of sentiment in terms of the narrative of Southern resistance, especially during the civil rights and the Black Power era. And there was always this sentiment that, oh, well, the Southern folks didn't resist with armed struggle in the same way that we saw those in the North or those on the West Coast. Dr. Umoja took the time to absolutely counteract that narrative and say, no, that's not true. Southerners were just as fervently resisting racism and white supremacy as any other coast. And he created the book, We Will Shoot Back. And if you haven't already been privileged to this book, then I encourage you to get your copy today. But Dr. Umoja was really inspiring to me because he showed me and he showed us why it's important for us to tell our own stories. And so he definitely has impacted the work that I do. I also stand on the shoulders of people like Dr. Mutulu Shakur. We just celebrated his life on 7/7. He made his transition, and he was someone who was a very dear mentor of mine personally. And I'm still grieving and ushering him into his ancestral space. But Mutulu was very, very clear that hip hop was a tool. And it was a tool of our young people. It was the language of the youth. And he absolutely all the time used hip hop in a lot of his political work. And so people like Mutulu have absolutely inspired me to make sure that we keep this thing called hip hop more than just rap, that it becomes a part of who we are as a people. And so I give thanks for folks like Dr. Umoja, Dr. Mutulu Shakur, Dr. John Henry Clark, Assata Shakur, Queen Mother Moore. Y'all know the names and the list go on and on. Aminata Umoja, so many wonderful human beings that have created a culture of standing up for ourselves and defining ourselves and defending ourselves. And so I stand on their shoulders, not only with this work as hip hop, but also just in general, as I bring what I do as a Black studies scholar. You know, it's because of Black studies that we even are able to have spaces where we can talk about and research and investigate things like hip hop. And so I give thanks for Black studies. And I feel even more so gangster being affiliated with this discipline, especially with all of this critical race theory and all of this attack on critical race analysis that's happening in our educational system. So I love that we have created this space called Black Studies, and I'm very proud to protect that space. And it's because of that space that we can talk about Black history, Black culture, Black religion, Black politics, Black literature, everything that has to do with who we are. And so with that realm of Black studies exists me, the hip hop wannabe, the hip hop scholar in training, right? I am absolutely taking on the tradition of taking our culture and giving it the just due of research and respect that it deserves. And I take the work from a woman named Portia K. Maltsby, who did a lot of investigation of African, what they call African-American musical traditions. And at one point, she was focused on blues and jazz and gospel. And with her research, she started to create this structure that showed where our roots lie. And that comes from a larger African diasporic tradition. Hip hop is not void of that. Hip hop is a part of that tradition. And that's a very critical piece to be able to begin our conversation. We got to make sure that we put hip hop on the lineage that it belongs to. Because a lot of times people will isolate hip hop. And when you isolate somebody, as everybody knows, when you divide, you are able to conquer. And if you isolate hip hop and say that it has no roots, that it came out of somewhere else, and it doesn't have any parents, then you literally are able to divide us as a community and as a culture and as a people. But the truth is that hip hop is an extension of us. So where you are in love with jazz improvisation, you will see elements of improvisation in hip hop. Where you see the ring shout in the Black church, you will see elements of the ring shout in hip hop. Where you see certain characteristics of our culture, syncopation, chanting, things like that. These are all visible within hip hop. Why? Because hip hop is an extension of who we are. And of course, when I am talking about this thing called Street Sankofa, at the end of the day, I'm talking about using hip hop music for our liberation. So how do I do that? Well, the concept of using music for our liberation is not nothing new. This has always been something that we've used. Whether it was Marian Anderson singing the music, singing her song on the March on Washington, whether it was James Brown talking about I'm Black and I'm proud, Nina Simone singing Mississippi, goddamn. Now, if I put that in some rap lyrics, that might resonate with a different crowd of people, right? But the sentiment is still the same. African people have always used music to help us understand what's going on in our world. And so the concept of using hip hop for our liberation, it should not be a foreign concept, because we've seen this happen over and over and over before in our lineage. One of my most favorite examples of using music for our liberation struggle is The Last Poets. And I remember going to the Malcolm X Festival in Atlanta, Georgia. And there was a moment where we had a real big thing about hip hop artists cursing and not cursing on stage at the Malcolm X Festival, because we had elders and young people and all kinds of folks there. And we would always encourage our hip hop artists, yo, be mindful. Don't get up in here cursing and carrying on, because that's going to be uncomfortable. And this is a family event, okay? What's so funny, though, is that a year, or 2, or 3, or 4 ago, we had the Last Poets come to the Malcolm X Festival. And as soon as they got on stage, the first word out their mouth was nigga. Niggas is scared of revolution. And everybody, I personally, my mouth dropped, because I could not believe, after all of these years of getting on our hip hop artists, that we had these OGs come to the stage. And the first thing out their mouth was a curse word. And the interesting thing about that is that it taught me something. It taught me that context was everything. Because when the Last Poets said that, the Last Poets was inspiring. It was calling out some things in our society at a certain time period. It resonated with a generation of people, you know? It was powerful. But when hip hop uses that word, and when hip hop heads use that in our rap lyrics, we don't necessarily always get that same credit. In fact, some of the language is just cursing for cursing's sake. It has no value of it, okay? But that taught me that if we knew the power of this language, we would use it with more precision and more intention. So I say that this concept of music being involved with our liberation struggle is something that we are very familiar with. And we should not excuse hip hop from having that same type of obligation to be used for our liberation. And as many of us know, hip hop is composed of several elements. And don't let me be, I don't want to miss the time. So please help me be mindful of the time.
Okay. Fine. We just will, you know, if it gets to a point, I may break it up so we can get some panel.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on. I'll take your lead. I'm just gonna keep talking to y'all till this time. Okay. So as you know, again, hip hop is composed of several elements. The first element that I promote as the first element is knowledge of self. To be a real member of the hip hop community, to be a real member of the hip hop nation, is to really have knowledge of self first and foremost. That's the history of what hip hop was built on. Okay. Secondly, another element of the culture is rapping. That's the most popular element. That's the thing that is always at the forefront. DJing is a part of hip hop. Breakdancing, graffiti art is a part of the culture. And then I am working on promoting this next element, the element of hustling. And although we're not going to focus on that today, I've written an article, and I'm hopefully going to be able to publish that one soon. But I do think that the spirit of entrepreneurship is absolutely a part of our identity as African people here in the United States. And so I think hustling should also be considered as a part of our traditions when we talk about hip hop. But I want to say this. I think of hip hop as a cultural repository. I really do think that it is a space that contains this intergenerationally retained African diasporic tradition. I think that hip hop has been able to house and to host so many of our wonderful traditions, like improvisation, like syncopation, like polyrhythm, like the use of ciphers. And I'm not saying this from my own language. This is something that I've gotten off of the work of others, like Portia K. Malsby, like Cheryl Keys, like Bakari Kitwana, like Osumare, okay? These are people and scholars that have already identified there's something to this thing called rap. And I piggyback off of what they have already acknowledged in their research. And so I advocate for hip hop as being a part of the tradition, but most importantly, being a cultural repository. This is where we've been putting all of our stuff over the years. We've been putting it subconsciously and consciously in the space of hip hop. And hip hop also is an iteration of an Africanist aesthetic, an aesthetic that is so global that it can be used and it can take root in so many places around the world, right? So hip hop in LA looks very different than the hip hop in Atlanta. The hip hop in the United States looks very different than the hip hop in Uganda or in Rwanda or in Korea. And so hip hop has this really cool attribute of being able to be what I call glocalized, so that wherever it travels, it settles in with the people that's a part of the whatever the community is already in. Okay, so hip hop in Cuba looks like Cuban hip hop. Hip hop in Turkey looks like Turkish hip hop. It's a very wonderful space to be in, to be able to take something like the culture and literally chew it up and make it your own. And so that's one of the attributes that makes hip hop so powerful and so global and so impactful. And so again, this concept, hip hop and activism. How do I use hip hop to engage in this street Sankofa? How can I go back? And so let me pause right now and say this. Sankofa, for many of us, is something that we're familiar with. But for those of us who are not familiar with it, Sankofa is a Ghanaian concept. And it's a concept that many of our African traditional cultures have used. And that's the concept of, in order to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from. You have to know where you came from. And hip hop is no different. In order for hip hop to do another 50 years, it has to know where it came from. In fact, I've asked people in several spaces, why are we celebrating the 50th anniversary this year? What was the marker that said year one? And I'm curious, I know that I'm the one doing the speaking, but if y'all will entertain me just a little bit, do y'all know why we celebrate 50 this year? Like, what was the marker of this is the beginning of hip hop?
Was it the Sugar Hill Gang, or who was that? The first like popular rap song that came out? I think it was New York.
Yeah, Sugar Hill Gang started in the Bronx. So the Sugar Hill Gang, that song actually was released in 1976. So most of us think, every time I ask that question, people always say that same answer. that we're marking it based off of the Sugar Hill Gang and the release of Rapper's Delight. Yeah. But that's not true. That's not true. What's interesting is that just lets me know that we really don't know about this culture as a general sentiment, you know, like common knowledge. We really don't have a common background, a common framework of where hip hop and why we even are marking it with the 50th anniversary this year. So I want to share this with you. DJ Kool Herc is one of the first people that takes disco. Now, I don't want to date y'all because y'all is OGs, but y'all ain't OGs like that. I don't know if y'all was rocking to the disco like that. But he took disco music. And if you listen to disco music, there's always this like, I'm going to call it the breakdown, because that just is the language that feels familiar to me. There's always this shift in the cadence of the music in the disco song where it shifts, okay? And what Kool Herc did was he took the shift only and he looped the shift, which means that he put it on with the turntables. He made it so that that sound of the shift just reoccurred over and over and over and over again. And so instead of having the whole entire full length of the disco song, he only focused on that one sweet spot, okay? And that loop ends up becoming the cornerstone of rap music. Now, there was a moment where Herc had a little sister, and she needed to get some school clothes. And then they living in the South Bronx in the 70s. And if y'all can imagine, this is right after this great white flight where everybody left the Bronx and the Bronx was desolate. And Herc had to figure a way to get some money up for his little sister so that she can go to school. And so what did he do? He threw a party. And for the
Beat
first,
Street.
Say it again.
I was saying Beat Street.
Beat Street. Here we go.
Beat Street.
B Street. There you go. So you see, this was the era that B Street shows you. This is the flavor of what we were doing. This is the flavor of what we were doing, right? We were throwing these parties for various reasons. So Herc throws this party to basically raise money to get his sister some school clothes. And this is the first time that he plays this looped sound, this looped music at this party. And that happens in 1973. And so that's why we celebrate 50 years of hip hop, because of that one event of Herc really using hip hop to transform his economic reality, to be able to find income. And out of lack, he was able to use ingenuity to create gain and to create commodity to support his family. That is the birth of hip hop. That's the inspiration that it comes from. So if we don't know that, then we miss so much value in this culture. We really do. Okay. So again, this idea of activism. Go ahead.
That's hustling.
That's hustling.
That's hustling.
Exactly. That's hustling. That's why I advocate for hustling as a sixth element of our culture. And I'm gonna take it a step further. There's a moment where I was reading something about Booker T. Washington's mother and how they were on the plantation. And there was a moment where, you know, they were never feeding us and treating us right. It was violent, beyond our imagination sometimes. But Booker T. Washington's mother, she went basically and stole some food. And people tried to, I guess, you know, make her feel a way about it. But she was very adamant of, I'm going to take whatever I need to take to make sure that my kids is going to eat. And that type of attitude is also the spirit of the hustler. Booker T. Washington later himself, when he was building Tuskegee University, wanted to create a brick that was so well made that he could basically create a product that other people would purchase. And that hustler mentality inspired him to create that brick. And he ends up becoming one of the biggest brick manufacturers apparently at his time at Tuskegee University. It's the spirit of hustling, but it is the element that allowed hip hop to be birthed from the beginning. So it's almost a point for me when I'm talking about hustling. It's like, we should have been talked about its value, but it's all good because now we're at 50 years. We can have these critical kind of conversations. And so I want to just bring to your attention some of the ways that hip hop artists have always used hip hop
Okay,
and as an element of activism. Go ahead.
okay, Dr. J, can we go to the panel for a second and then we come back to
Sure.
you? Okay, I'm gonna go to Brother E. Brother E seems to be pretty excited here. So I want to go to him first.
Right on.
Okay, are you guys familiar with African Bambaataa?
Yeah.
Which what role do you think he played as far as encouraging the youth to know about our culture, as far as African culture?
Yeah. African Bambaataa was pivotal. He was pivotal. He was literally one of these people in our community in the Bronx that was able to see we needed to do something with our young people because we were starting to have limited options, right? Bambaataa was instrumental in the Zulu Nation. Just the whole, I think what we need to do first off too is separate people from their contributions to the culture and who they are as people. Because African Bambaataa has gotten into a lot of trouble lately with some other personal things, with some things that he's done, right? So I want to make sure that I say this. I'm going to separate what people have done for the culture and who they are as men and women, how they choose to live their life, okay? But what he's contributed to the culture has been invaluable, because one of the things that I want to give African Bambaataa credit for is really focusing on that knowledge of self. He really was able to capture an audience with our young people in the Bronx. And that Zulu Nation became a cornerstone of so many people's identity. And it really was based in African culture and African traditions and African history. So African Bambaataa, he was one of those first people that really saw that this thing called hip hop was really supposed to be used for us to have a sense of identity. And he created space for that. He created space for that and made it super popular and helped to push and propel hip hop into what it is today.
All right. Excellent. Okay, Brother Mashinda. You there, Brother Mashinda?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation tonight. I was here last time you came on, and like I say, yeah. So it's good to go over the historical points of hip hop. Of course, it's part of my generation as well. Growing up, and I'm familiar with pretty much everything you're talking about. And I think that it's kind of a shame that it's where things are today. Of course, there's people like yourself, and there's other artists out there that are very conscious, that are promoting how to live and how to treat each other and how to grow as a nation, and how to continue to make it through the struggle and things like that. But so I mean, I don't have anything to add. I think you've covered a lot. Just historically, I support what you're talking about. It's more, it's more than just the art, like you say. It's just another way of it's musical. Well, not just music. People, well, it's a music industry, but it's more like way to express how we live, how people live. It covers politics, it covers everything. So I think it's a way. It's a great medium to put information across. And I wish we had more. Of course, these days a lot of artists are exploited, or making personal choices just to chase the mighty dollar, and sacrifice their not using their potential and their talent to continue to promote something on a higher level. So, but anyway, I just appreciate the presentation, and I don't have any more to add right now.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Professor Ra.
Again, Abangani, my sister, and
I got it, brother.
congratulations on all your achievements as a professor and your in-depth study of the music and relating it to Sankofa, reaching back. And I appreciate all that. The questions I have, when you say hip hop is a culture, what is the code? The people that practice it is the culture, but what are they deifying and ritualizing?
Yeah, great question. I think that when I say that hip hop is a culture, I'm saying that hip hop is an iteration of a larger culture, an African diasporic culture. And we are just an extension of that. So there are no, and see, this is why the education of hip hop is important, because most of us don't have a consciousness of why we are even participating in this genre, and why we're listening to the music, why we're fascinated by it, why it speaks to us so much. So I want to make sure that I say that when I refer to the culture, I'm really talking about a larger African diasporic culture, and hip hop is just an extension of that. So there is no gods, there is no deities. Now, in our African diasporic traditions, that exists. And if hip hop were to participate in this Sankofa, then we might be able to go back and to acknowledge what those deities and what those spiritual foundations are based off of our diasporic traditions. But for hip hop, the unfortunate part about it is that the gods, the energies, the frequencies that drive it are not our own. They're greed, the frequency of greed, the energy of consumerism and consumption, the energy of discord sometimes. These are the energies that tend to run supreme in hip hop culture because of so many different reasons that we can get into the why. But I would encourage to say that those things exist, but they don't necessarily have to exist in isolation. And a part of that is because we don't really know more. We need to know more about this culture.
Well, isn't it an extension of the history of phonics that go all the way back to the beginning of rhythm and musical inclinations by African people? I mean, it's a universal language. I mean, Chinese have Chinese songs, Mexicans have Mexican songs, and Black people have African songs, because when you go all the way back, as they emulated animal sounds, and then they had dances that had a message in it, you know, had a ceremony in it. They didn't just dance the bump. But what my question is one in which, is it an extension of musical messages that go back to the various conditions of Black people, but it evolutionized to this new generation of young people who can relate to the positive aspects of hip hop, but there's a negative, and one in which turned other generations off.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a book that I have. I don't even know if I got it right now. I almost want to grab it, but his name is Kunjufu. What am I saying? I'm missing his last name. His last name is missing me. I want to say, I'm missing his last name. Say his last name.
Wanza Jakufu.
There we go. There we go. And I used his work at one point because he's very critical of hip hop in terms of what you just spoke to, Baba, in terms of the negative and the destructive characteristics of it. You know, he spoke to that very heavily. I think that that's a part of hip hop that we have to address. What's more important is to be able to, and this is why this conversation is so powerful, because when you talk about the culture after 50 years, you have to also talk about, well, who's in control of the culture? Who's dictating? the culture? Who's profiting from the culture? And so some of the music that we see now, the Cardi B's, the Sexy Reds, the Moneybag Yo's, all of these new artists, these people have come up in a different kind of era of hip hop, because there are more consumer driven incentives in this era of hip hop. Do y'all feel what I'm saying? Like there's more reasons for you to be with all of the chaos and the discord because it becomes more profitable. And a part of that is because we're not the ones that are in control over the music.
And that's my point, because a lot of people feel that one of the major promotion of some of the negative hip hop is white folks. They got the money.
Yeah.
They're able to have people like Lil Wayne and all them people, and give them Grammys and give them things. But then again, you got Kendrick Lamar,
right,
who tries to just stick with uplifting the people and waking the people up. So, and so this is why the challenge of hip hop is that how many, white people or white people saw, it's like this. Drugs became popular in the community because they made it cheap.
Yeah.
Dollar this, dollar that. And so some hip hop, not all of it, became popular because the Europeans made them do lewd lyrics and profanity and drinking. I mean, remember when BET used to have videos and the guy throwing drinking 40s and shaking them up and shooting them on the women and all that type of, everybody in a hot tub together. I mean, so it really turned a lot of the people like myself and others off, because we know that music plays more of a, it has a spiritual element to it that almost all your singers when we was coming along came out to church. But then again, you had Oscar Brown Jr., who was rapping way before that.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Oscar Brown Jr.
I'm gonna Google him when I leave this conversation.
Well, said to signifying monkey to the.
Oh, signifying monkey. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I know that.
Get them in, all of that, and then you had Gil Scott.
Right.
Rapping about South Africa.
Right.
And you said the last poets, in the E pluribus unum. And then you had Sweet Honey in the Rock.
Yes.
And all of them had messages.
That's right.
They were taught before they sang. And Nina Simone was good at that.
That's right.
She would talk and tell you, because she wants you to get the mood and the understanding.
Right.
But so some hip hop don't have none of that.
Right.
They just go into it. So
that's right.
I want to know, how do you make the separation when you're celebrating 50 years and you include all hip hop?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great question. And let me say this, I don't separate it. It's all a part of who we are. It's all a part of the culture. There are contradictions within hip hop. There are some examples that I could tell you that are empowering to women in hip hop. And there's examples that I can give you that are absolutely misogynistic as all get out in the culture. I could give you examples of music that is destructive, right? But I can also give you examples of music that is inspirational and liberating. So I don't necessarily make a distinction. I think it's all a part of the culture.
No, I'm not saying you, because you're a scholar.
Right.
I'm talking about the average person.
The average person, that's fair.
Yeah, they don't study. They don't,
Yeah, they're not.
and
They're
they
not.
just in for the enjoyment.
Right.
Then it's transformative because other ethnic groups um be singing those songs like they sing our oldies but goodies.
Yeah.
They be trying to rap. I mean, I stop at the light and Latinos and some white people be playing black music and
Right.
then go home and vote and go to Ku Klux Klan meeting. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Quite literally. Quite literally. Yeah.
but
And
I appreciate your study.
yeah.
And, I like the knowledge of self. I like rapping and DJing, scratching and all that with that history and break dancing. But it seemed like that then phased out, to
It's
line dancing.
transformed. Yeah, it's transformed. Yeah.
When line dancing took it over. Everybody would jump up on the floor at the same time and do some
Yeah.
line dancing.
I
And
love it.
and graffiti, positive graffiti, and hustling. You ain't doing nothing if you ain't hustling.
I know that's right.
I
Yeah.
mean, to
Yeah.
get them PhDs and become a professor, you had to hustle.
You ain't lying. You ain't
While
lying.
other
Yeah.
people were laying on the couch smoking
Yeah.
blunt. You understand?
Right.
but still, I
Right.
appreciate your narrative.
Yeah. I appreciate you. And you said something that really resonated with me. There's a moment where the average person is not thinking any further beyond the song that they're listening to. And that's a real criticism. That's a real criticism, and I hear that and I accept that. And I want to say that a part of what I would encourage and I would advocate for is variety. I think a part of what allows us to circumvent some of the consequences of being able to, of only listening to one type of music, the counteraction to that is variety. You cannot have just one version of rap music existing at one time because that wouldn't be fair to the whole of the culture. There was a moment, and I kind of allude to this in terms of the golden age of hip hop. There was a moment where you saw a variety within the culture. You had music that was politically charged. You had music that was reflecting of just what was going on in the street life, in the street culture. You had music that was just for the party, right? But you had a variety of music. When I listen to rap music now, I don't see the same variety. It's either trapping and rap, trapping and guns and all of that, or it's not, or it's not, or it's not. Those things and those people who are talking about something positive don't necessarily get radio play, you know? And so there's a moment where hip hop has to have variety. You have to be able to give people as much as possible and let them choose for themselves. Unfortunately, we're only given one version of hip hop right now. And that's the part that's the problem.
Where it's a hard business.
Say it again.
Music is a hard business.
And then it's that part. Then it's the commercialization of hip hop. Yeah. Then it becomes, and at the end of the day, this is still a business, and you're supposed to still be able to make profit and make money. But at what cost are you doing that? And what's interesting is that a lot of times people will try to say that music that is political is not profitable, but that's not true either. If you get outside the United States, you start seeing that the majority of hip hop around the world is political. It's only in the United States that we see a very distinct attack on politically charged rap music, an intentional marginalization of it. But in other cultures, you don't see that in other places, you don't see that as intentionally.
But look at the murders of young rap stars and the killing and of course the signature assassination of Tupac and Biggie and all that at early ages. I mean, young ages, 25, 26. And then the East Coast versus the West Coast. And so it's like a hip hop gangbanging. And so, and I'm not saying that's not part of the regular culture either, regular music industry, because
Yeah.
they have their issues too. But when it comes down to our appreciation
Yeah.
of it, it takes away from it.
It does.
It should ignite them, take away from it.
It does.
You know,
I agree with you. I wouldn't say that's I think that that's a part of that conversation, that we should be able to be able to address that and to be able to say that, you know, that it does take away from it. And I think what's so interesting is that, and I talk about this in this presentation, and we could pivot and just have an organic conversation. There's a moment where I think that the commercial industry saw the power of hip hop. And I argue that it really came to a head in 1992 with the LA riots, where you see this merging of rap music and political activism. And I argue that that's also when you start seeing this shift, where you don't have the politically charged rap music on the mainstream radio anymore. That you only get this Luke, Two Live Crew, shake your booty, do dancing and drink drinks and smoke weed type music. This is when you start seeing a shift. And this is why I think that we need to have a street Sankofa, because once you realize the potential power of hip hop, it starts to make you appreciate why they intentionally are keeping it limited to just what you see on the TV and on the radio right now. Because if I knew that this music could wake you up, if I knew that this music was powerful enough to inspire you to do something big, then of course I got to stop that. When you had the Los Angeles riots, I was a little girl, and the rappers were all over the place. They were all over the place. Ice Cube, Yo-Yo, Ice-T, King T, so many different rap artists were the ones that were leading the charge about the violence between Blacks and Koreans in Los Angeles. You know, Cop Killer, NWA, all of those type of things hadn't even come out just yet. There was a real wave, though, where you start seeing these rappers becoming politically charged. And in 1992, what happened? We see LA get burnt to the ground. Literally. This is also a sentiment that we start seeing with our gangsters. What happens when the gangsters turn revolutionary? What happens when they start using that culture of tribalism for something a little more intentional and liberatory? It becomes under attack. It becomes under attack. Same thing with hip hop. Same thing with hip hop. There was a time where we had that variety, that you didn't just see, you know, the death and the destruction and the misogyny and the violence. That wasn't the narrative of hip hop. When it first came out, that wasn't what hip hop was. You see what I'm saying? This is why I advocate for, we need to go back. We need to go back and we need to remember why hip hop started in the first place. And we need to be able to say, we need to take control over our own creative and our cultural traditions. Because if we allow those that are in power now to continue the narrative of hip hop is going to destroy us. It's going to continuously taint the minds, the bodies, and the spirits of our people.
Professor Ra, don't let your oppressor be your teacher. All right, Brother Henry, jump on in. Kind of low, Henry.
Evening, sister, and the panel.
Good evening.
You hear me now?
It's better.
I'm real good friends with my uncle. You know, we grew up together in town. Brother every day. Talking to him often. Anyway, this musical thing, hip hop and reggae. I would love to be able to understand the messages that are in it. I can't understand none of it. I would wish that the people would put the words out there so people can read it and see what they're talking about. Because I don't have a clue. You know, I'm from the era of, you know, the old soul music, the Radicals, Curtis Mayfield, people like that putting down a message. You know, Isley Brothers, Fight the Power, and all of that. But I would sincerely hope, it's been my wish that reggae and hip hop. They put the verbiage out there, the concept of the vernacular that they use. I don't know what they mean when they say certain words. You know what I'm saying?
They used to do that. They used to put the whole what do you call it? A lyric book. This is back when people would have CDs. You know how you would have the CD and then you open up the CD and the CD insert.
I have,
People, you you
I
you
have
you know what I'm talking about?
but you got to go back a little further before the TV. I'm like 8 tracks and
Y'all are so funny.
Hey, brother Joe, if you go to YouTube, they have a lot of the songs that has the lyrics for the
Yeah,
there's a lot of lyrics. You know, you get the captions.
right.
So it does. They do have that. You just have to put it in there. You know, with the lyrics, the video with the lyrics. So it's a lot of that around. But go ahead, keep going.
you know, when it comes to that technology part, I'm kind of way back there also. But anyway, appreciate what you're saying. And I know these youngsters have something that they want to say that's necessary. Like I said, I just was trying to understand what they were saying. You know, Kendrick Lamar was one of my students. And
Oh wow.
back in the day. And I don't know if he's seen the music, but he must be saying it because everybody talks about it. I saw all this and that. And that Super Bowl that he did, just from the Rams with the people, I didn't understand not one word, but it was good to see. This is where I stand with it. Keep rolling with it. That's one thing about hip hop. I should hear a song come on, and they were using the introduction of a song to my era. And I'm getting ready to finger pop, and then boom, it jumps off the rap. I'm like, what they
Yeah,
for?
yeah,
I want to hear the song from the era. I don't understand what
right.
so I see a lot of that in it. And I just want to end up by saying Sankofa. I wish everybody could see the movie. It was only out for a short period of time. I used to show it to my students.
Yeah. Powerful movie.
Yeah, they showed it at Magic Johnson Theater one summer. But,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But the spirits of the dead rise and return to the soul.
Yeah, thank you. You said something that I want to acknowledge, that there are moments where you hear a song that you're familiar with from your era, and then the song drops and it ain't the original song, it's a remix, right? That right there is a indicator of how we are an extension of our parents, how we've sampled the music of our grandmothers and our fathers and our mothers. That's a tale of why we cannot separate hip hop, because it's so much of us that is from this other generation. James Brown, George Clinton, Funkadelic. Do you know how much of West Coast music has been impacted by them cats right there? P-Funk, that whole era is darn near West Coast foundations. When you talk about Dr. Dre and Cypress Hill and some of these other, that ain't nothing but P-Funk. That ain't nothing but James Brown. You see what I'm saying? That's nothing but Funkadelic all day long. The mothership, Sylvester, what is it? Sly Stone, Sly and the Family Stone, and all of that. That is where we come from. Hey. So that just goes to show that we're not. It's not different. It's just a new generation of it. It's a new generation of it. Go ahead, my brother. I'm sorry.
Let me jump in a little bit on that. And I wanted to say that when Snoop Dogg, let me tell you, these 3 albums, you got Dr. Dre's album, that first one. Then you got Snoop Dogg's first one. And you got the Dog Pound first one. That was some of the best music that I've ever heard, but it was all sampling from the other artists. That's why it was so good. It was so pure. because he had the dramatics in his song. Snoop Dogg did.
Yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah.
And they
Dale
that's why
Phonics, he got a couple different folks up in there.
I had to stop listening to the music because of the lyrical content.
Right.
I was well off into it. Uh-oh. She she went she'll probably come back, hopefully. But yeah, when I was into dancing and going to parties, because I like the music so much, and the DJs I used to hang out with, I told them, I said, if you mixed Dr. Dre's first one, Snoop Dogg, and the Dog Pound's first one, that'll be some of the best mixes that you would ever get. Because the music it was just basically dramatics, they went back and got the different artists in there. I mean the music from those artists, and it was just, the music was pure and it sounded real good, but the lyrical content was very derogatory and misogynistic. But the music was awesome, and I used to love it, but I had to cut it loose because it was just too derogatory. But going back to you, Brother Mashinda, I hope she comes back. I don't know what happened, but Brother Mashinda,
Yeah.
when we used to listen to the conscious rap, you got me hip to a few conscious rap artists like Grand Puba. You want to talk about that a little bit? Some of the artists back in the day that was the rap artist that was conscious.
Well, I mean, I think she covered it pretty good. I mean, like you say, you can think of other artists, that participated on the conscious level. Um, like I say, I was going through my exploration at the time as far as trying to up my understanding on different levels. And so I just sought out, the ones that were, kind of like, nationalist black power type movement slash, just straight up consciousness, just to, take my head out of the, take my life to another level, because I mean, when you get into the areas of helping people, and especially when I started out, in the fields of, human development, trying to help people get themselves together and trying to get myself together and continue to develop my own self, I sought out, anything positive, and went on a crusade of consciousness. And so I was introduced to, um, like you say, just whoever, the thing about it, a lot of them didn't get any radio play. You had to seek those guys out yourself, or females. Um, you didn't hear them on the mainstream radio. Some of them made it, and they cut out some of the content, or actually were, of course, if they were cussing, you didn't hear too much cussing on the radio and things like that. But the cussing didn't bother me when they were using it in the context of trying to, provoke thought and discussion about, what's going on in the world, and so,
Let-
but
Mashinda, let's get back to Professor JIE.
go for
Now,
it. Go ahead.
thanks a lot, though, Brother Mashinda. But Professor JIE, I wanted you to finish your presentation. You had the PowerPoint going.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I apologize. My computer glitched
Oh,
out
that's
for
okay.
me for a
That's
quick
fine.
second.
I'm glad you came back. We was gonna hang out for a little while. I was
Right
hoping
on.
you came back.
Right on.
So can you continue with that? Because I want to hear the rest of it.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and finish this out. Let me share my screen and go back here. Okay, let me go back here. All right. So again, we're talking about, using this music for something more than what it has been used for. That's really what we're talking about at the end of the day. This music, I think, to some of our sentiments on our conversation, is that this music has been used to cause a lot of trouble, to promote some things that are not healthy for our community and our people, you know. And so this conversation is really geared towards how do we stop hip hop from perpetuating destruction and death and chaos, and how can we use it now as a tool in our liberation struggle and as a form of activism. And rappers traditionally have had a history of using rap music as a form of resistance, you know, and in providing what we call social frames, political frames. How do I understand what's happening in my world? Sometimes rappers would give me the socio-political critique that I need to be able to really make sense of my reality. As I mentioned to y'all before, there was a golden era where we had a variety of rap music all in one time, and that was a very powerful spot, a very powerful space in our history. What's interesting though is that around this time, after 1996 or so, after this golden age, this is when we start seeing that music conglomerates are really starting to take control of rap and rap messaging. And as I mentioned to you before, I do think that political rap music started to become more and more marginalized right after 1992 riot. And so when we talk about artists that are using hip hop as a form of activism, there are artists that already exist, that are already doing this, that have already given us how this model can be replicated. And those artists are people like Dead Prez, people like Lauryn Hill, Queen Latifah, Talib Kweli, Mos Def, so many other different artists who have already started to, who have already embodied what it looked like to use music for some type of inspiration or some type of liberatory purpose. What's also very powerful is that as I started to do this research and investigating this connection between activism and hip hop, and I started to recognize that a lot of times that type of rap music, we would label conscious rap music. That's conscious rap music. I think Baba Amen had said something earlier about the music that's of death and destruction and chaotic. You know, we have different types of labels in rap culture. You know, we call some music trap music. We call some music, you know, conscious music. We call some music, you know, what is it called? Sturdy. We get using it's a dance style called getting sturdy. Drill music. This is another. There's so many different types of music within hip hop. But one of the things that I acknowledge is that conscious rap is a thing, is a label that sometimes the artists that are using political messages in their lyrics, they don't always like that term. Because that term sometimes, it's almost like someone putting a target on their back when they're saying that I am the conscious rapper, or I do music that is conscious, that's politically charged. Some of these rappers don't like that title. They don't like the social stigmas that come with that title, which is very interesting. You know, so there's so many different reasons why people don't even want to get involved with political messages with their music. And one of the biggest things is that there's an assumption that this is not going to make them no money. This is not going to make them no money. But we see with artists like Dead Prez, Talib Kweli, Common, Queen Latifah, it doesn't always have to be, that doesn't have to be true. There are some artists that are absolutely have been politically charged in their messaging and just as successful as these other mainstream, more commercial artists. And so again, I just want to make sure that I make the connection between riots, the LA riots, and rap music. This is a powerful connection because as I mentioned to you before, this is the first time we start seeing rappers not only engage in political commentary, but in direct action. The Los Angeles riots scared the crap out of a lot of people. And I think a part of that is because it came from the streets. And hip hop absolutely became the voice of the Los Angeles riots. And if you really look at the history, you start seeing that there is a significant change in rap culture after the Los Angeles riots. Significant change. There's a song that's called You Can Get the Fist. And that song was created right after the Los Angeles riot. Really kind of like at kind of like at the height of it, you know, kind of like at the moment where it was just fresh. The rebellion had just been freshly embarked upon. Okay. And these rappers got together and they made a song called You Can Get the Fist. And it's a very powerful song. And I don't know if I have the means to playing it on this platform, but you can always listen to it on YouTube. Do you know that they made sure that that song did not get released until months after the riots was over? Because the media was afraid of what this song was going to do. Because the young people had already started to burn down the streets of Los Angeles. And so this particular song is yet another example of how hip hop, those who are in power, they saw the potential of hip hop's inspiration when it came to political action. And they purposefully kept this particular song out of mainstream media. They did not release this song. They would not let them release this song. And the song is powerful as all get out. And I don't know if you all can hear it. Can you hear it?
I think you have the ability to share the sound. You just have to go to the
I have to learn how to do that.
It's once you pull it up, when you share the screen, when you first share it and you put it
down. So click the share sound button, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's see.
You probably have to go out and then
Did it do it?
Yeah, we could hear it.
Okay.
He having confused the black people, and we didn't know if he was black or white.
It seems to me that there's some sort of master plan here, because they're watching, like you're saying, they're watching them burn these houses. They're not doing anything about it.
Get a taste of the heat while I burn down the streets. Trying to recognize who wore the white sheets. Gaffling me up and I'm fighting cause they got me. Known as a king, knowing what they did to Rodney. I know you know the deal was open season on my race. I'm black and I'm proud to be looting in your face. But that I'm real smart, cause see, it's a plan to lock up and shut down the black man.
Yeah, you can play that role like you ain't with it if you wanna, but it's on till the break of dawn. I said it's just a few good men when we were fighting. I guess it'll be more good men now we're united. Now all of a sudden they wanna bring in troops. Niggas in my hood been getting loose and bucking fools, but now we're getting wiser. You can tell by the fires that they're fed up. The war is on us.
And they don't call us gangsters. We do bad, brothers.
What happened to the drive-by killings? Ain't nothing popping no more, cause brothers now chillin'. From every hood, the block, the corner, the street. Now black on black, the other color gets beat. I guess it's time for brothers to turn a page and let out some rage and bang a Caucasian. She ain't MC8, got the pale face running scared. Gang of blue, fuck the white and down with the red.
Doing dirt at the time, I thought it couldn't hurt, so I became a jack and expert. Looking, scooting up down, cause they're shooting up a clown. That fucking pig in the blue suit, that pig sound, bust the ass copper, point my bazooka at your pork chopper. You passed me along just a month back. That's why I got my hand on the pump jack.
The best thing is for everybody to say what they feel and not hold back. I mean, that's the only way you get it through to people is to say what you feel. If you say.
Hear ye, y'all come kick it, man. I never thought I'd see 1,000 Crips in the Nickerson guns. Pardon my manners. I saw the Bloods and Crips waving big black banners, bandanas, ties, straps on their side. Cause in the projects it was a lot of black pride. And I remember the time I couldn't answer my pager, cause if you were slipping, your enemy come engage ya.
It's the Cam and what's up, damn. This is like a dream, it feels good, cause every hood is on the same team. Arch rivals, got the 5 hoes kinda nervous. They laying in the cut, but I know they want a service, and I'm certain it's hurting Gerald Gates. He'd rather have a brother pressing California license plates, while the media gets greedier for ratings. It's 12 o'clock at night, but I'm rolling gold Daytons, and it's cool, cause ain't nobody tripped but the cops. Deep G bass coming from the rag top.
All right. And I'm gonna stop it right there because the song, I think you get the sentiment of how powerful this music was. And this song, literally, while the riots was happening, these artists got together in the studio and created this song. You Can Get the Fist, kind of like a play on that. What is it? Like you can get this finger, the middle finger. Okay. So they made the song, You Can Get the Fist. Did you see how the imagery of this video, you see the words of this video, Crips and Bloods rocking together, the hood being on one accord. You see the calling out of police brutality and the calling out of racism. You see the potential of what happens when artists start to talk about politically charged messages. And the thing that's so powerful about this is that if this song were to have been released in the midst of the LA rebellion, it would have took the rebellion into a different direction and politicized us even more so. Even more so. We were already burning the city down. But if we would have had a song, a theme song, a rallying cry that could articulate why we were burning stuff down and what our demands were, now you start talking about revolution, y'all. Now you're starting to talk about revolution. That scared the mess out of the media conglomerates. And after 1992, you ain't gonna never see no politically charged music in this way ever again in the mainstream culture. In the mainstream culture. This is why hip hop has to go on a street Sankofa. There are so many young people that would have no idea that that potential exists within hip hop. There are some of us that wouldn't know that that is even a possibility, right? So it's important for us to have this moment. We got to go back. We got to go back and we got to look at the potency of hip hop music and its ability to transform not only our reality in terms of expressing ourselves, but it can really inspire genuine political action and political change. And of course, even though there are several attempts to keep conscious rap music out of the mainstream, there are artists that continuously dedicate themselves to pushing conscious music forward. And we acknowledge those artists. Like I mentioned, artists like Dead Prez, artists like a friend of mine who just made his transition just recently, Malik Kill-I-Am. I would even argue artists like folks like myself. There are some of us who are absolutely inspired by this potential of hip hop and social change. And we are dedicated to being able to see it come to fruition. There's a song that I want to always introduce to people that people don't always get to know about from Lauryn Hill. And the song is called Black Rage. And it's a very powerful song, but it reminds me so much of something like that Nina Simone would have done in the height of her career. And so although I'm not going to play this song right now, I will read to you just very briefly the lyrics, what some of the lyrics from Lauryn Hill's song. She says, Black rage is founded on 2/3 a person, rapings and beatings and suffering that worsens. Black human packages tied up in strings. Black rage can come from all these kinds of things. Black rage is founded on blatant denial, squeezed economics, subsistence, survival, deafening silence, and social control. Black rage is founded on wounds in the soul. That's rap music, y'all. That's rap music. And this is the power of what happens when our people use rap music for our liberation. People like Lauryn Hill, people like the group Oshun, people like my sister Sarat, my sister Sharice Nicole, Star the FemC. These are women and men that have dedicated themselves to using this culture for our liberation. And I want to end with this. I always say, and I will continuously say, that if hip hop is not used for our liberation, if we don't remember the power of this culture, if we don't teach our young people about the history of hip hop, then hip hop will be used for our destruction. It will be used for our destruction. And so I encourage all of us who are revolutionaries, who are historians, who are scholars, who love our people, who love this next generation of young people that is coming up, to make sure that we teach them about the power of this culture, about who they are and the potential of what they can accomplish with hip hop. So that's my presentation. And I call, like the doors of the church is open. I call to the altar any and everyone who is willing to take this street Sankofa with me, because there's a moment where we can only do this of value if we do it together. If we do it together. And so that's my call to the hip hop nation, that as we celebrate 50 years, that we stop for a second and take inventory to look at our history and where we've come to be able to influence the direction of where we need to go as a culture. So that's all I got.
All right. Excellent. Excellent.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Thanks for coming. And I want you to stay on, you know, right after I stop the show. So I got a few questions for you. But yeah, this is what we have to do. We have to bring information to the forefront to help us liberate our minds. That's what it's about, mental revolution.
Yeah.
I appreciate your presentation. Next week we have brother. Let me share the screen. Let me change the view. Next week we have Brother Muko coming back, and let's take a look at what Brother Muko is going to be doing. Let's see my way. There it is. So Brother Muko is going to do part 2 of Body Snatchers Protecting Your Black Sperm / Justice Day. So he's going to be back to continue that discussion. And then Professor Ra, what we doing next Tuesday?
Tentatively, we're going to do a news forum, discuss critical issues affecting the Black community, and discuss the issues that we're going through, the shooting of those people in Jacksonville. I mean, we got to come up with an analysis that wake people up, and a discussion on the critical, not just critical race theory, but voter suppression, and you know, the issues that we face with as Black people.
Right. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
So, Professor Ife Jai, you're always welcome to come join us in our discussions and in our shows if you ever have time. I know you got a young family, and you teaching all these young people, you know, getting them knowledgeable about hip hop and rap and just the culture, period. So we appreciate your efforts and your work.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all. I need to put y'all on my syllabus as we call it, outside resources. So I'm gonna put y'all's YouTube channel on my syllabus, because y'all got some good stuff on this channel. Yeah.
Yeah, this makes 281 videos and
wow. Congratulations. Yeah, it's huge.
And, you know, we got these master teachers on here. We got Professor Rod, Joe Hembrick, Brother Mashinda, all knowledgeable Brother E, trying to get Brother E to come up and take over. So it's a beautiful thing. So each one teach one. Conscious, we're gonna take our pause. Have a good evening.